Mr. Dominic Frisby, welcome back to the What is Money Show.
Thanks very much, Robert. A pleasure to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. I wanted to just plug your Substack right here at the top of the show. It's really good stuff. You are writing excellently, as always. It's called The Flying Frisbee, and you can find it at frisbee.substack.com. And today we're going to talk about one of your latest pieces, Money is Language.
Yeah, well, so I wrote this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, yeah, Robert's going to like this. So that's why I pinged you a little message. And it was something that kind of, I suppose, came out of, it's a continuation of one of the conversations we had. I don't know, was it last year or the year before? I can't remember now, but whenever it was we last spoke. And it's all about money as communication and money as language. And I guess it starts with, again, something we touched on before, but this is the cable, the first transatlantic cable that was laid between Europe, or it was actually laid from Ireland to New York. And I think it took them 3 or 4 goes before they were first successfully able to lay a cable. This would have been in the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s. And I think several people went bust in the process, and investors lost their shirt and so on. But and that's often the case with new technology. You know, it happened with the internet. It's happened many times with Bitcoin and altcoins and so on.
And this is laying cable on the ocean floor to connect Europe and North America, right? Telecommunication cable.
Exactly. The first telegraphic cable, I think it was called. And anyway, because at that time, it took 2 weeks or 10 days, maybe, if you wanted to get a message from mainland Britain or Ireland across to New York, it would take you 10 days. Can you imagine?
Crazy.
And this is like only 1850, so 170 years ago. But I think 1866 was the first time they got it right. And in July the 27th, 1866, Queen Victoria sent a message to the US President, President Johnson. And the message said, I love the way people spoke in those days. I'm going to read it now, but the message said, the Queen congratulates the President on the successful completion of an undertaking which she hopes may serve as an additional bond of union between the United States and England. So very polite way of saying well done. And and then Johnson replied, to Her Majesty, the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. The President of the United States acknowledges with profound gratification the receipt of Her Majesty's dispatch and cordially reciprocates the hope that the cable which now unites the Eastern and Western hemispheres may serve to strengthen and perpetuate peace and amity between the governments of England and the Republic of the United States. So, you know, really nice, long-winded way of speaking that they had. Now, before that message happened, it would, as I said, it would take 10 weeks to send a message. And now it was suddenly just a matter of minutes.
Right.
And so somebody came up with the slogan, 2 weeks to 2 minutes, which is a really kind of cool slogan for the time, 2 weeks to 2 minutes. And I bet they were all sort of thinking, you know, this telegraphic cable fixes this.
It's funny
to think of another Bitcoin slogan, but yeah.
This is basically the world's first text message, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's so incredibly formal compared to what we do today. But it's interesting that this happened, then we got to the telephone, and then when texting became the thing on mobile, a lot of people thought that would never work. I mean, at least when it was becoming popular when I was young, there were a lot of older people, I remember thinking that, oh, that's silly. My parents still don't send text, you know, but I guess the point would be we started with text, then we got to telephone calls, and now we're back to this asynchronous text messaging thing.
It was the first text message. And now the funny thing is people are sending voice notes instead of text messages, which kind of do my head in because they're like, no, I've got to listen for 2 hours, 2 minutes, however long the voice note is. But some people ramble on in their voice notes. But anyway, And so I think the very first messages that were sent were actually sent in Morse code. And this would be before the Queen's message between Johnson and the Queen. It was actually sent in Morse code. And you're probably too young for this, but the very first pages that you used to get, like doctors had them, you could only send numbers. And you would just you would have a pager on your belt, and you'd get a little vibration when you got a message, and it would just be the number of the person that you had to call.
Yeah.
So I would, in those days, I would get my agent would send me a message, call him, and then I would call him, and it would mean I had a voiceover, and I had to quickly go into town and do a voiceover. But anyway, but of course, it went from Morse code to words very quickly, and transmission speeds improved rapidly. And then it was possible to send multiple messages at once, down the cable at once. And by the end of the 19th century, Britain, France, Germany, the US, they were all linked by cable. And, relations, political relations, commercial relations, personal relations, they would change for all time with just a simple bit of wire. So It was an incredible, transformative bit of tech. But here's the thing. Now, back then, the world was on a gold standard, obviously. UK had the dominant gold standard. And interestingly, there was a big argument going on at the time. They were trying to, the French were trying to get everyone else to adopt metric. America was in an argument about whether silver should be a money as well as gold. And the various European nations were also having the same argument. But because the pound was only gold and there was no real silver money, not much, we were on a gold standard, not a bimetallic standard. And the pound had been so successful, most countries ended up copying us. And so that's one of the ways that silver kind of got abandoned and left the monetary system. But the only reason we went pure bimetallic in the first place is because there'd been a massive run on silver when Isaac Newton, in like 1716 or wherever it was, and we had no silver. It had all gone to the continent. So Newton just went, okay, we'll just do it on gold. So it was kind of accidental. But anyway, but the point was, so gold and silver were money, but you can't send gold and silver down a cable, but you can send a promise. And within a fortnight of that first message between Queen Victoria and President Johnson, within a fortnight of that first message, that's what two parties who trusted each other did. And the first official exchange rate between the dollar and the pound was agreed. And it was published in the New York Times, August the 10th, 1866. And that is why to this day, the pound dollar exchange rate is called cable. It goes back to that very first cable. So you could send promises, but you couldn't send hard cash. Now, let me get a picture of a £20 note here. I've got a picture of a £20 note. I've got a £20 note here in my pocket. You still see, I'll just hold it up to the camera so that people can see it. You still see, there's a £20 note there. And just underneath the Bank of England, so you got the Bank of England sign there, and just underneath it says, I promise to pay the bearer the sum of £20.
Still says it. Wow.
So once upon a time, it would have been £20 of sterling silver, way back when. But now it's I promise to pay the bearer £20. So it's a promise. So this is actually a promise of nothing, because obviously it's fiat.
Right.
But does it have I promise to pay the bearer on a US dollar? Does it still have that or not?
It does not. The old dollars said redeemable for a certain weight of gold or silver, but that's not on new dollars. I don't believe. I think now it just says "In God We Trust," Federal Reserve notes, something like that. All
right. So anyway, that's that little tradition there. So
I can pull one out actually. Let's see what the U.S. says. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Federal Reserve note. In God we trust. That's about it.
Okay.
So you got
the
Fed
in proof we trust.
And then on the back, in God we trust, which, as we both know, is in Fed we trust.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the point is, you've got, and we'll come to Bitcoin in a second, but the point is you've got two types of money. You've got the hard money, physical money, whether it's gold, silver, it could be shells or whale's teeth or whatever it is. And you've got promissory money.
Yes.
Now, and one is belief and the other is real. Now, Adam Smith actually said all money is a matter of belief, which is quite a profound quote when you think about it. And I suppose you've got to believe in the merits of gold in order to use gold as money. But anyway, but we have been using promissory money ever since the dawn of civilization. The very first debts were, we spoke about this before, but clay balls with tokens, you know, a cone for a sheep and a disc for a bushel of barley, whatever, is baked inside clay balls. And then people found it was quicker to inscribe the clay balls rather than just inscribe the clay with pictures of the tokens instead. And that's how the first system of handwriting developed. And then in China, I think man started recording his debts on bits of leather. Then they invented the printing press, and so we started. Promises are recorded and exchanged on computers around the world, and probably, I don't know, millions of promises, billions of promises are sent every second. I don't even know what the number. And they transfer as quick as words. But the point is that as money evolves, or as communication technology evolves, so does money. And in fact, as in the case of handwriting and something like Bitcoin, it might actually be that money is the spur to drive the communication technology forward. Sometimes one leads, you know, it's chicken and egg. One right. Sometimes you get one, sometimes you get the other. Now, obviously, the beauty of Bitcoin is that it obviates the need for trusted parties altogether. You need trusted parties for promissory money to work, and Bitcoin obviates it. You know, it's a money communication network backed by mathematical proof and shed loads of computer power and all the rest of it. And the trusted third party is the blockchain. So, and I always say to people, owning Bitcoin is like owning a share in this new communication technology. Right. And who wouldn't want to own shares in something with as much potential as that? And it's not like they're doing rollbacks. Right. It's not like they're issuing more shares in it.
Yeah, that's a great framing for it. Actually, I often say something similar, that imagine if you could have owned equity in HTTP or something like that, and all the companies that are built on top of that. That's sort of like what owning Bitcoin is.
Absolutely.
It's
owning a share in the protocol.
If I could, let me echo a couple of things back to you, just to try to summarize here. So this idea of really transformational communication technologies, they, like you said, we went from 2 weeks to 2 minutes. So if you just imagine how much faster information and knowledge are now moving between these two continents, and how much more coordinated human actions would become as a result, at least in the economy, right? So this was like the backbone for globalization, or the global division of labor, in a way, is we needed fast communications. Otherwise you can't do that. Yeah. And to your point, though, that promises on this tech are super high velocity, right? You can send them in 2 minutes. But the idea of sending, so that's deferred settlement, right? I'll pay you this or adjust the ledger that. But final settlement in something like gold, this technology didn't improve, right? You can't send gold over the telegraph wire. So we get into this problem where now the more useful money, the higher velocity money that's promissory, has this people problem, because now you have to trust people, basically, not to, to keep their promises, I guess we would say. And so, and I like to quote that all money is a matter of belief, but I guess the difference would be, in a promissory money, you're believing the individual making the promise, or the group making the promise. And it's something like gold or Bitcoin, you're just believing what is, right? Like gold doesn't deviate from what it does. It always kind of does the same thing. Bitcoin always kind of does the same thing. So it gives you this firm foundation for belief. versus promissory money, which is notoriously unreliable.